Good morning, everyone. Great to be on the call with you this morning, and thanks to the IASA for having me on. My name is Cormac O'Sullivan. I'm Brand Partnership Manager for Tourism Ireland in Great Britain. And I suppose just firstly, a little bit about myself. I'm from Dublin. Studied in DIT Ainger Street. Studied finance back in college, and I suppose after doing a few internships in college, I realized I wasn't really into working in banks and things like that. So I've decided to go into a different field altogether. And I got onto the Dublin Airport Authority graduate program. So I did 2 years in aviation business development and then 3 years in B2B marketing. And I suppose all of those roles were with the aim of bringing new routes to Dublin Airport and also kind of increasing frequency and capacity on existing routes. So really good program and kind of a really good way to kind of learn more about the industry and kind of have a career in the industry. I went traveling for a year after I worked in DAA, and then I came back to work in Tourism Ireland in the London office since 2015. And at the moment, I'm looking after the brand partnerships team, essentially working with travel partners to promote Ireland. So like today, I know we don't have too long, so I'm going to keep it fairly brief. I'm going to touch on what Tourism Ireland do, who we are, what our goals are, and I suppose how we do it. Then I'll look at some of the pillars to what we see as our recovery from where we are now. And then I'll finish up with some of the trends that we're seeing in the markets at the moment. So Tourism Ireland, some of you might be very aware of who we are and what we do, but just in case, for those who aren't, we market Ireland, the island of Ireland overseas internationally. So you may have come across Fáilte Ireland and Tourism Northern Ireland as well. And I suppose our remit is different to those in that we focus on everything outside of the island. Whereas the remit for Fáilte Ireland and Tourism Northern Ireland is everything on the island. So you probably wouldn't have seen our brand in advertising campaigns, but you may have come across Fáilte Ireland and Tourism Northern Ireland within the island. So our goal, as I say, is to market to Ireland overseas, and also like with essentially the goal of increasing the volume of holidaymakers to the island annually, and also to increase the holidaymaker revenue to the island. So if people are looking to come to Ireland, we hope that they'll kind of come for longer and spend more, and we want to get Ireland onto the people's agenda when they're thinking about their next holiday. So how do we do it? It's a combination of advertising campaigns. So, whether it be a digital campaign, out of home, an integrated campaign, the kind of standard advertising, our publicity activities. So working with the publications like the Guardian, for example, the Telegraph, those kind of publications, sending journalists over to cover, tourism events and things like that. And then the trade and industry, so working with tour operators to make sure that Ireland is featured on their itineraries and is kind of pushed out to their customer base, and also partnership marketing, which is essentially the area that I'm involved in. And that's where we partner with travel brands like air carriers, sea carriers, and online travel agents like the likes of Expedia, hotels.com and lastminute.com and those guys. So we work with all the air carriers and sea carriers that provide access into the island. And obviously they're absolutely vital for us because essentially we're 100% reliant on access as we're an island. So it's vital for us to partner with the access carriers. And how we do that is through 50-50 cooperative campaigns. Essentially, we'll work with them to see what routes need a push. And then we'll put 50% of the investment into a campaign and they'll match fund that. So the benefits of working like this, obviously, we can share the expense, which is obviously huge, but it's also how we share insights and research. So we'll be constantly doing research in the markets to see what consumers are kind of thinking about Ireland, what they're thinking about their holidays in general, and kind of we can share that then with the partners to really make the targeting of the campaigns a lot better. And also we'll be running a lot of assets and things like that. So we'll kind of develop our assets so the campaigns are more appealing to people. So by working like this, we essentially get better campaigns. We get more visitors, more seats sold for the carriers, and then that'll mean in long term more access. So we generally time the campaigns with the partners coming off the back of some big activity in the market. So let's say if we're on TV, we'll try and come in the back of that with our tactical messaging with the likes of you know, Aer Lingus or Ryanair or Irish Ferries or Stena or P&O. So like, I suppose just to look at the situation that we're in at the moment and looking forward, I'm not going to dwell too much on, you know, where we are at the moment, because we all essentially know Ireland's been closed for, you know, the best part of 12 months for obvious reasons. But looking at the bounce back and the areas that we'll kind of look at for, or we look at as kind of key for our recovery, the first part is like the consumer research. So Tourism Ireland, we do a lot of, I suppose, extensive research, and especially in our top 4 markets of Great Britain, US, France, and Germany. We need to keep a very close eye on what people are feeling about traveling as things develop, because it continually changes with how things are changing. I suppose a good example of this is focus groups that, you know, would have done maybe last summer. I remember sitting in on some of those focus groups, and everything was about, you know, people wanting to feel safe, wanting outdoor spaces, COVID messaging being very clear, social distancing in everything that they kind of see when they're looking at booking travel. And then it was the focus groups that I sat in on last week were very, very different in that people seemed to want to get back to normal. They were looking for kind of more of a city break, a city/rural break, having a combination of the two. And there was a lot more assumed kind of COVID safety, and they didn't really want to kind of get that kind of COVID safety messaging pushed on them as much as they did previously. Obviously, it's a small base in terms of what I'm basing that off, but you know, it's definitely a trend that has changed from my perspective anyway. So I suppose the key to that is that we're able to adapt the messaging to reflect what people are feeling about travel. Another, I suppose, pillar of the recovery will be the access side of things. As I mentioned earlier, we're unbelievably reliant on access into the island in terms of travel and everything else beyond. So Ireland is quite lucky in that it has 2 really strong home-based carriers in Aer Lingus and Ryanair, but we need to support all the carriers that have access to ensure like the island essentially gets the capacity back that we had before the market is essentially closed. And then I suppose the third pillar would be the trade and industry. So working with the tour operators, travel agents, and everything like that to make sure that Ireland is like a high priority destination when they're pushing it to their consumer base. I'll just touch on some of the trends that we're seeing from our research and also from the research of our partners. So the likes of TripAdvisor, they're very good at sharing research and insights from the very high volume that they get in on their platform. So like, I suppose what everyone's seeing is proximity tourism. People are looking at destinations familiar to them, and they don't really want to take the risk of getting caught out in an unfamiliar destination and having to, you know, maybe quarantine in a hotel, or, you know, they just don't want to get caught out. So people are, for the time being, I think will take a very kind of like, I suppose, proximity look at where they're going to be traveling on their holidays. And then the pent-up demand I mentioned just previously there about the focus groups that I sat in on over the last while, and it was incredible to hear about some of the people and how many holidays they booked. A lot of people had booked up to 4 holidays for 2021 already, because they're kind of a bit more aware of the flexibility on tickets, and like that offering is a lot more flexible from all, I suppose, the travel trade, because they need to get the bookings in. So there's a bit more confidence now, I think, in people taking the chance on bookings. So yeah, there's a lot of pent-up demand there, and it's beginning to come through. People organizing their trips as well. TripAdvisor have been telling us that like people are spending a lot more time researching their trips, and dwell time on their site has gone up massively. You know, people are taking more time just to make sure that, you know, what they're booking is going to be, I suppose, you know, it'll be flexible and they'll be able to kind of get out of things if they need to. Some people might have got kind of caught last year with bookings, so they're taking a lot more time to kind of research and make sure of things. And then finally, just about some like, I suppose, unique experiences. Previously, there would have been a lot of focus on the kind of, I suppose, the key kind of tourist attractions like the Giant's Causeway, Cliffs of Moher, those kind of things. But from talking to a lot of partners, the research that they're seeing is that people are kind of will be looking less towards those kind of key tourist attractions and more into unique experiences like you know, engaging with locals and kind of having more, I suppose, unique experiences rather than taking a selfie with the you know, tourist attraction in the background. And they want to get a bit more unique in terms of what they experience in a destination. I think, you know, that's probably about it for me in terms of like what we're seeing at the moment. Very top line view, but again, you know, if there is any questions, I'm more than happy to take them. I think the guys in the IASA will be able to feed them through. So more than happy to take any questions in the future.